resources, inspiring interviews, business practices, and practical advice to take your art career to the next level. Join Sergio Gomez in today's Artist Next Level and get ready to take control of your career.
Hello, my next level friends. Welcome to the Artist Next Level podcast. This is episode number 144, and I'm super excited because I am here sharing today's podcast with none other than my good friend, Pia Cruzalegui. Hi, Pia. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I am super happy to have you here in the program. And
Thank you for having me.
We're going to have an awesome conversation. We're going to talk about your art practice. We're going to talk about what you are doing right now in terms of the curatorial projects that you do. And a specific, something which is pretty big that you've been working now for a few years, a film festival. It's called Twisted Oyster. So we're going to dig into that, the process, how that happens,
okay.
Why in the world you want to start an art festival, and the challenges that come along the way. And I think it will be a really valuable episode for friends who might be thinking of doing something similar, maybe starting a curatorial project of their own. And, so kind of looking at some of the things that they should prepare for, in the future. As a lot of times you kind of learn valuable lessons on the way.
Yes.
And sometimes you wish, like, if somebody had told me a little bit about this before, maybe it would have been a little bit easier. But that's the way. So, Pia, you and I, just going back, giving a little bit of context, you and I met, I don't know, I was thinking, was it 5-6 years maybe?
It was 2012, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so about 5 years. Okay, it wasn't too bad. So I was in Miami, and we went with my wife. We went to Art Miami and during Art Basel Week and so on. And you were presenting an installation, a video piece, and we kind of connected right away. We started chatting. We exchanged information. Came back to Chicago. I was in the process of curating a show that was called License.
Yes, correct.
And I invited you to participate. Not only you participated with an awesome piece, you also came to Chicago, and that kind of continued the conversation. You went back to Miami, and then we decided to import you into Chicago.
Yes.
You came to Chicago to do your MFA at the School of the Arts of Chicago, which you recently finished as well. So a lot of things have happened in between, and along that time, as you came here, we continued talking about your desire for doing curatorial projects. You did a few things with us as well. And then one day you say, I want to start a film festival.
Yes. Yes, just like that.
Tell us a little bit about your background really quickly. Where were you born, and kind of where you grew up, how you ended up kind of here where we are now?
Yes. I am from Lima, Peru, and I grew up over there, and I lived most of my life in Miami. I also went to a small art school in Pittsburgh for a little while, and but most of my life I spent in Miami, and where I worked as a multimedia designer, I worked in film festivals, and I have a background in film and multimedia. That's where I went to college in Florida, and then I decided to go for my MFA, and crazy enough, I decided to move to Chicago. And people are still wondering why I did that, but I think it's possibly why would I leave the Sunshine State is beyond me. Right. But it happened, and so I'm here, and Chicago has been nothing but good fortune for me. It's been an amazing ride. It has provided me with plenty of opportunities for professional and personal growth, and so I had the good fortune to connect with amazing people in the art world here, and so here we are.
That's awesome. So before we talk about the festival and so on, let's talk about your own art practice, because first and foremost, you're an artist, and that is kind of awesome that even though you're doing these curatorial projects, you're also very active in your own practice. So tell us a little bit, what's your work about, and kind of what are some of the highlights that you are doing right now, or upcoming projects that are along the way?
Sure. So currently I am exhibiting in South America. It has been a very important aspect of my personal art practice to show my work in Latin America. I am Peruvian. I am a Latin American artist. I consider myself a South American. I am South American, a Latin American. And I think it is important that I connect with the art world over there. And so earlier on this year, I decided to take on a personal or an independent research in Mexico and Ecuador and Peru, and decided to go and meet people at different levels of the art world. And fortunately enough, I not only met artists who eventually became involved in my festival, but I was also fortunate enough to meet artist curators like me who are involved in bringing forward a lot of social art and social causes. And so I was invited to an exhibition in Ecuador, and it opened about 2 weeks ago. It's a group exhibition on feminism and pretty much on gender, and it's called Art and Gender, Arte y Género. Uh-huh. And I am part of that, and I have new work being exhibited over there, which pretty much taps into a movement that is on the rise, kind of like what's happening here in the US, but it started a little bit earlier in 2016 or 2015. And so it just, that's kind of like my focus right now. It's trying to create new work that could be exhibited in South America. I'm also talking to an Institute of North American Culture in Peru, and for a possible solo exhibition in Lima. So that's kind of like happening in the back end, and right. It's flourishing and it's happening.
Very cool. Well, that's very exciting. That's very exciting. Congratulations on the show. That's pretty awesome.
Yes.
And you go back and forth. You do quite a bit of traveling also to Latin America and with your projects. And that's I'm sure that's pretty also exciting to go and meet people and then come back here and, open opportunities and back and forth.
Yes.
I find that, wherever I go, it's like the world is a small place. And more than ever, we have this opportunity to connect, to stay in touch through social media, to, use the tools of technology that we have today, to really create bridges, right? Instead of creating divisions, creating bridges so we can
absolutely
collaborate no matter where we are in the world. And I think that's pretty exciting. So yes, congratulations on that. And not only, we have known each other for a few years and working in projects, but also became very good friends. And yes. I think there's a lot of things that you and I are alike. We are kind of always working on something, right? There's always a few things cooking in the kitchen at the same time. Yes. And we seem to thrive on that energy.
Yeah.
And I think that is pretty fun. And that is cool, and one of the things that you have kind of started, which started with a idea first in a small room, and then now it's just been getting bigger and more impressive, is this film festival. So why in the world would somebody want to start a film festival? That's a big question there for you.
It's funny because sometimes I do wonder that myself. Still today. It was something of an ambitious project that I conceived while I was at the Art Institute of Chicago, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, for my MFA. Uh-huh. And I just thought that it would encompass my background in filmmaking and my background as a video artist. And I just thought at that moment, and now we're talking maybe 2014, I'm thinking about how can I make video art more accessible and experimental, bringing forward experimental filmmaking, and where and how can I bridge both film as an art form and multimedia or video art as a part of it. And so it kind of begins with that notion and that idea of, I think that experimental filmmaking and video art has more to say than just the moving images. And by then, I I was always being questioned as a video artist, I was always being questioned, well, what does video art do? What is that? How do you exhibit it? How do you even sell it? And those are all valid questions, but I think that as an art form, it is such a wonderful tool that is malleable enough that you can create and have an impact on an audience if it's well executed. And so with that in mind is that I started the festival.
And so this year you did, was it the 4th edition or the 3rd edition?
The 4th.
The 4th edition. Wow. So the first one was it at ACS Gallery, right?
The first edition of the Twisted Oyster Festival was at the 2nd floor, what we call the media room. I had been, as you know, a resident at the Joe Brothers Art Center for, by then I think it was like almost 2 years. I can't remember, and I had a space large enough to have projections, and I had been doing so, inviting different people. But I really wanted to challenge myself to do it. And I remember I spoke to you about it, and you're like, yeah, do it. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea. I will wing it. And so it started with like maybe 22 chairs and a screen that you helped me build, and projection. That's
very cool. And then so from there, so that's first year. Then second year went to a bigger space, which was ACS Gallery.
Yes.
Was the second year, which was also a beautiful curated exhibition. You turned the whole gallery into almost like this dark room space with multiple projections and screens and so on. That was really neat. And then the third year, it was at my gallery, right? It was at 33 Contemporary.
Yes.
And you also did a fabulous job. There were also in that year, you had more also not only the video part, but you also started to do more performance-based.
Yes.
Also, I remember, and installation-based work. And then this year, you really did a huge jump and took over the second floor of the Joby Art Center, which for those friends who have never been there here in Chicago, is huge space, massive, about 15,000 square foot of exhibition space, warehouse style. And you took it and you did an amazing job. I still hear good compliments on that exhibit. Multiple projections, multiple programming, installations, and it was just great. And I think, it's great that we're having this conversation after that is over, right? That you have not put it in the back and probably thinking about, how you're going to outdo that one, right?
Oh my God, that is the big one now.
So how, as you look back in the last 4 years, how has your initial idea has changed over time to what it is now? Because I know a lot of times, we start a project and we have, something in mind, but then as we move it along, things that you didn't know before or ideas that maybe come along the way start to give it a new shape. So how has it evolved from kind of the first edition to the fourth?
Yeah, so my initial challenge the first year was pretty much programming and trying to attract the filmmakers and video artists that eventually showed in the festival. Because nobody knew what Twisted Oyster was. Naturally, nobody was paying attention to it. So immediately it became an international event by need. It was at first it was a local call to Chicago filmmakers and video artists, and nothing happened. I think I only had one call or one entry, and thereafter I opened it regionally, and when that didn't work, I opened it up nationally and then internationally. So immediately it became an international event. And so once I had the work and the films in, programming was my initial challenge, and I pretty much had to teach myself how to add time. I had absolutely no concept of what that entailed, and it for anyone that has not done programming in the past at a media level, it's incredibly difficult. Mm-hmm. And of course, now there are even websites that help you manage time code and adding time codes and so forth. Okay. So that has become even easier over time. But my immediate challenge was the programming. The second year,
can you, before you go to the second one, can you expand a little bit on programming? Like,
sure.
What do you mean exactly by programming?
The programming in terms of filmmaking is the movies that come in, the length of or duration of film or video art in this case, and managing the time slots. So if I have, how long will a chunk of video and film take, and where do I create the intermission aspect? I don't want to go over every 15 minutes. I needed to create an intermission because it's a walking space. So I have to be conscious that I am still in a gallery space and that people are just not going to sit for half an hour even. So it was also, even in the selection process, I had to keep in mind not to select films that were over 10 or 12 minutes because of attention spans in just the average human being, right? So all of that I had to become conscious about, and I had to do some research onto how to do programming and talk to some people about it that had done it in the past. The second year became, it was challenging because I really wanted to show a lot of the work and that was presented and the subject. Oh, so one thing about the festival is that it's theme-based. Every time that I do an open call, there is a theme that must be followed. So the first year was just an open call for experimental and video art. And then the second year, it became an immediate call for entries on the theme of freedom. And interestingly enough, it's so broad that freedom differs where you stand in the world. Our perception of freedom here in the US or in Central or South America may be different from those people in the Middle East or Africa or wherever. And so every year the theme's faced. Okay. So over time, what I have learned is that programming can be challenging. The festival has also grown in terms of having an outreach program where I invite one of the filmmakers or the video artists to do a presentation or conduct a workshop aimed towards young artists, kids in high school mostly. And this year, actually, we had an incredible presentation by one of the exhibiting artists and on the future of animation. And that was presented to freshman students from Harold Washington College. So it has grown in reach and in inviting this kind of young audience as well, which I am very much interested in.
Right. Well, that's fascinating. You know how it has changed, has evolved over time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about, having your options open mm-hmm. and kind of seeing what comes your way and adapting to those things, mm-hmm. as you mentioned. What has been some of the biggest challenges? Because I know, we can look at all the great things that has happened as a result, but I'm sure you had some, headaches, some things that along the way, kind of maybe at some point you almost said, forget it, I'm done with this and I'm not going to do it. And then like, okay, it happened, it went great, I'm going to do it again. I'm sure you've been there.
I feel that, I don't know, maybe I should have like a get together with other curators that have done this kind of this sort of project. And I think that we can all agree that at some point we want to kind of hang the gloves and say, forget it, I'm done. Quit.
We need a support group, an AA group.
I think that one of the biggest challenges with the festival has been financial, in terms of like how it supports itself. And that was something that I had to embrace very early on. And for reasons that may be different one from the other. And I have been perhaps lucky enough to be able to connect with people that have believed in the project and that have actually assisted in any way or form, whether it's been by means of a venue or even equipment.
Okay.
And even in some cases like assistance with marketing, which is huge.
Right.
So, tackling those finances early on has helped me manage the festival every year better. So now it's in a better position of sustaining itself.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
How about in the organizational level? Like, what's one of the hardest things? I know, for example, for me as a curator, a lot of times is like chasing information. So many hours and hours is spent in chasing artist information, right? Like, send me this, send me that, don't forget to send this. And it's a constant chase or rain of emails that sometimes, that in itself is a full-time job.
Yes, it is.
All the information that has to be managed for any type of exhibition, any type of show.
Yes.
How about, in your experience kind of doing the film festival, what is in the organizational part or compartment, what's been one of the biggest challenges?
One of the biggest challenges, I would say, is precisely rounding up the artists to meet deadlines.
Okay. Yeah, that's typical. Yeah.
And like you said, it's sometimes challenging to be chasing them. One of the way that I have managed that in many ways has been by proposing to them or giving them an actual deadline and telling them that past that deadline, they're just not going to be part of the show.
Right.
But I make sure that they get excited enough to be interested in it. And I give them a lot of information on the show, on the theme, on the space. I conduct walkthroughs of them. I personally go, if they are locally based in Chicago, and this past year I actually had, like I said earlier, I went to Quito and Mexico City and Lima. And so I was able to actually meet many of them in person, and have regular conversations with them over the period of like 2-3 months to get them excited and to send them send their work over to me.
Awesome.
So it is always a challenge to manage them, but I think that I have been lucky enough so far to have good response. And some of them are actually more keen with meeting the deadlines than others, but for the most part, I've been lucky. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really admired, of the way you run your projects is your attention to detail, because that's a thing, that's an asset that is very good on you. That every cable needs to be in the proper place, the aesthetic of the show. And the attention to detail, I think, is very important. Yes. And not everybody kind of has that eye, which you have, to look at everything, how it's experienced, how it's seen. And I think that's I just want to mention, I think that's something I appreciate of you. When we work together, and as I see you working, I think that's really wonderful, because it's a lot about the care that you give to the show.
Oh yes, it's important for me to be aesthetically appealing, and I mean clean. I'm sure that there will be opportunities to have something that is more casual looking, but I am always aiming for a good aesthetic, and I think that perhaps comes from my background in in project management as in the design field or architecture field, and where everything kind of has to be like clean and just
Right.
I think that's where it comes from. But yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it's a sense of excellence that needs to be there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So okay, Pia. So now let me ask you this question: what's the future for Twisted Oyster? And actually, there's another question before that. Before we go to that, I'll give you a couple minutes to think about that.
Yeah.
Why did you call it Twisted Oyster? What does that mean? Or where did it come from?
Okay, so I wish I had like a super witty answer for you, but the truth is that I remember first proposing it to you, right? Because I first you were director of exhibitions, and you still are, and I was in residency at the Joe Brothers, and I had the media room to develop, and I just had this idea, and so I throw it your way, and you said, yeah, go ahead, run with it, and then I just kept on dwelling on what am I going to call it, how am I going to go about this, what the hell am I getting into, until that call of yours came in, and you said, okay, I'm meeting, whoever it was, I'm sure it was Michael and the directive of the Joe Brothers and Art Center. And you said, okay, well, what's the name of the festival? And that's it. I mean, it just kind of like came. I think I was looking at an ad and I said Twisted Oyster, and
you're
that's
thinking
it.
Miami, oysters.
Yes, it was really, I knew I wanted to be something like quirky, but I couldn't really figure out, and I had proposed like a bunch of names, and at that moment that you asked me, it was kind of like, this is what's coming to me. I saw the name Oyster, and I just kind of ran with that. And
I remember when you sent me the message, like, I hope she's right, because this is it.
That's it. That sounds screwy enough for a experimental film and video art festival.
I love it. That is pretty cool. Twisted Oyster. That is awesome. And what's the website? Where can our friends find, Twisted Oyster in social media?
So in social media, it's at Twisted Oyster, and it's the social media handle for Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And the website is twistedoysterfilmfestival.com.
Cool.
And it's up and running.
So let's go back to the question that I made previous. So, what's the future of Twisted Oyster? Is it open to the public, or something you're still working on, or what's the answer on that?
Okay, there are things going on. The festival that the exhibition that I curated for the July-August opening, called Vital Signs. I have pitched it to several places, and a couple of places are looking into it. So it looks like, and it's already confirmed that I just need the dates, but it's going to be exhibited in Greece for 2019, in California Island. Okay. And so all of that will be eventually updated into the website, but right now I'm just kind of holding off, but it's that's in the works. Okay. It is growing and expanding its outreach program to include art residencies. Okay. And so I am working on the art residencies as well. And the outreach is an important aspect of the festival. I am very interested in using the festival as a platform to connect social issues of diverse interest, and having the residencies to form part of it is an important aspect of it.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so that's what's brewing in the background right now. I do not have a date set for the 2019 exhibition. I am thinking that it may be maybe 2019 or 2020, looking to use this a good chunk of 2019 to develop the residencies and get them going, and have the festival travel outside of Chicago for the first time. So the fifth iteration of the project, of the festival, may actually happen abroad.
Very cool. And I think, you know, as you plan ahead, and I'm sure you're thinking about all the different options and ideas, but there's nothing that says that you have to do a show every year that is
absolutely not
this day to that day. You know,
right.
You have the flexibility to do whatever you want. It could be that the whole film festival, instead of being at one place at one time, is actually the whole year with all this programming, with the recipes, and that is the festival itself. It's not a now it opens, now it closes, and we'll see you next year. But rather, you know, and maybe in the long run, that may have more impact, you know, and more benefit for the artist, you know, than an actual, you know, time frame exhibition. But, you know, being able to be part of something that has more, more segue into different countries, into different aspects, into the realization projects. Maybe like could be even some exchange, you know, between people who participated in one year versus who participated in another. I mean, I think there's many opportunities, many ideas that you can actually go, many directions you can go, which maybe sometimes that's kind of nowadays I think that's maybe even better to think about how could it be something different versus trying to, you know, to do the typical.
Exactly. I think that the festival does definitely break a form in which maybe other festivals. It's not your typical film festival, that's for sure. And for one reason, it has a new media art exhibition attached to it. So it is important to have that aspect of film, and film needs new media art. And so that dynamic is important for the festival. And like you said, yes, the reason for having this moment right now for 2019 or entering into 2019 is to expand its not just a program, but its reach, and be more inclusive, and establish a presence perhaps at a global level, which is my interest. It has always been, that has been an interest of mine, curating the project from the get-go. And I think that it's ready to do that.
Very cool. No, that's exciting. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of you have to have the heart in it. You have to have the kind of like the energy and the excitement to do it. Otherwise, it comes to a point like, okay, why do I do it, right?
Right.
And I've actually talked about this a couple episodes ago. You know, when you have to, I stopped actually my podcast at 140, and I stopped for like 5, I don't know how many months, I didn't even count it. And I just said, you know, why am I doing this? You know, why am I doing the podcast, right? Here I am, you know, scheduling, inviting, but why am I doing it, right? So I actually stopped unannounced, and then I went back, you know, like nothing happened a few months later. And I said to everybody, you know, I actually devoted a whole episode talking about, you know, why I stopped and why I'm back. And now I feel, you know, more excited to be back again and to be working on it. And that, you know, going back into some of the projects that I've done, some of the bigger projects, like for example, when I started the national self-portrait exhibition, I always saw it as a 10-year project. And I always thought of it, it's going to be a 10-year project. And by the 10th year, it was huge, and we were, you know, getting entries from all around the country. And you know, when I said, as I said, it's just the 10th, this is the final. You know, I got so many emails of artists, you know, telling me, but why are you ending it now that, you know, so many people?
Now that it got so much better.
Yeah, we make work specifically to submit for that. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, my heart was in the 10 years, right? And after that, that's it. And, you know, it's important that as you go along with your project, and as you look at, you know, what's next and what's not, you know, always ask yourself, why am I doing it? And it's worth my time and effort and so on to continue it. Right. So we look forward to what you're going to do with it. I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. And, you know, we're super excited to, you know, to be on this side, always supporting what you do.
Thank you.
So, all right, Pia, so we're getting to the end of this episode. We have been talking about for just about half hour or so. So now I'm going to ask you one question. Now you get to ask me whatever question you want.
Okay.
Ask me whatever you want.
So, what is next for Sergio, who has like kind of, I feel it's true what you say. It's like you and I have one thing in common, and it's like, that excitement of like having these projects going.
Right.
And it's like almost like an octopus, right? You have,
right, exactly.
You have your reach in like different projects, and they all somehow come together, and it's this beautiful thing. Well, what is that eighth tentacle looking like?
Well, for me right now, actually super excited because, there's a couple of things. One is, this year was really busy for me with exhibitions, my personal work. And so I had, quite a bit of traveling, and my work was in a lot of places. And so next year, I kind of devoted it to my studio. I'm not doing many shows. I'm actually spending a lot of time in the studio creating the next, body of work that I want them to get out to international venues and so on. So I need to devote a whole year to work on it, to really focus on that. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay. And in the second part, which is I'm super excited with what's happening with the Breakfast with Sergio show, the podcast. We're looking into starting doing more things in Spanish too. I'll be in Mexico City next week. We're going to be doing a workshop in Mexico City, which is going to be exciting. And that's already sold out a week before, and so we are very excited about that. So the idea is then to start creating some more content that we have done in English, for also in Spanish. So that's where I am right now.
Interesting. That's awesome.
So, yeah, exciting. So thank you, Pia. Thank you so much for being here. Where can we find you in social media?
You can find me in Facebook at Pia Cruzalegui. I know my name is a mouthful, but you can find it.
Just look at the name of the episode. Right.
Yes, and I'm also on Instagram as Pia Cruzalegui artist. So yes, it's
very
easy.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Awesome, Pia. Thanks so much for being here. And to all our friends here in the Artist Next Level podcast, thanks so much. Please share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe. And we'll see you in the next episode. And I will see you at the next level. Goodbye.
Check out our website at www.theartistnextlevel.com, where you will find our podcast library, learn about our upcoming webinars, find resources relevant to your career, and much more. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you at the next level.